and that actually improved my big wave surfing. I was actually seeing more in a wave.
Welcome to the Surf Mastery Podcast. We interview the world's best surfers and the people behind them to provide you with education and inspiration to surf better.
Well, I was talking to Kelly Slater a few years back. We were sharing some stuff around nutrition at the time, and I'll never get him saying.
Welcome to the Surf Mastery Podcast. Today I'm here with Tom Carroll. For those that don't know, Tom is 2 times surfing world champ in 83 and 84. Tom won the Triple Crown in 91. Tom has 26 career victories on the tour, including 3 pipe masters as well. Tom is an accomplished stand-up paddleboarder, a well-respected big wave rider, including many Eddie invites, and has done Storm Surfers in 2012 with Ross Clark-Jones. I could go on, but I won't. But what I wanted to ask you, Tom, was back in the 80s when you were on tour, It wasn't the Dream Tour back then, was it?
Very far from the Dream Tour.
So you had decent waves during the Triple Crown, but earlier on in the year, there was a lot of 1 to 2 foot slop.
You know, professional surfing kind of started off with on local beaches, city beaches, as well as places like Hawaii, you know. In the 80s, it had got to the point where, the promotion of the sport really sort of centered around the larger populated areas, and they weren't necessarily the great surf spots, you know.
Yeah, so you really had to be very much an all-round surfer, didn't you?
Well, yeah, it was all about surfing everything and anything. The actual format of the events was there was no waiting period. It was 5 days, there was 2 days trials, 3 days main event, and it would go over those 5 days no matter what the conditions were. So you knew that event was going to go. So that was certain. So what wasn't certain was the waves, and you just had to make do with what you got. Going to really small wave spots on the east coast of the US, you know, even in Australia when the surf got really small and challenging, you know, had to get really good at surfing small waves, and that wasn't my kind of best suit, really.
It wasn't your forte. So tell me, how did you learn how to surf small waves better?
Well, first of all, what spurred me on was Tom Carroll in particular came on the tour, and I've just been rising up pretty in a very strong way, and I started getting hold of, not quite winning events yet, but I was making my headway in most events like that I was competing in. And then all of a sudden, Tom Carroll turns up, and he was in South Africa in 1981, I think it was 82, one of those 2 years. And I remember watching him surf on this really small wave, like really small wave at the Bay of Plenty in Durban, and he's doing full roundhouse cutbacks, and I was going, wow, how do you do that? Like it was, and he had a really weird wide stance. It was completely different than the way he surfs now, and then he did this really complete roundhouse cutbacks, and that looked really cool, and I liked it, and that inspired me, and I knew that was going to be trouble. I instantly knew that was going to be trouble for me. In the next couple of years, I needed to really address my small wave surfing and get better on understanding my boards in small surf and my body in small surf, and the whole idea of hours, practicing in small surf.
So time in the water in small surf.
Time in the water in particularly challenging small surf, like waves that I had to kind of fit in specific moves before the end of the ride. Yeah, and had to sort of make equipment and look at how to, make boards that would really sort of fit into those waves, and ones that would fit into my surfing and my body and the way it worked.
So board selection is key, and obviously watching Tom Carroll.
Watching people like Tom, but there are other really good small wave surfers. One in particular from the East Coast was Wes Lane. He was a really tall guy, he was like 6+, 6'2", 6'1", maybe 6'3", maybe. He was tall, Wes, but man, he could surf small waves so well, because he came from Virginia Beach, on the east coast there, and used to long summers of hardly any waves and surfing just tiny east coast waves. And I remember him coming over and doing the events and hanging out at my home beach here at Newport in Sydney, and I couldn't believe how well he surfed just the smallest little shore break all the way. And that counted for a lot back then, because length of ride was really big too back then. So, if you could surf the wave all the way, as far as you possibly could, and still do full complete manoeuvres, you could score up pretty big. Mm.
Is there anything else you can think of that helped you to surf faster in the small waves? I mean,
physically, I had started to train. We looked at some other sports, and see what kind of time other athletes put into their sport. We looked at tennis and hours and hours on the court. Dance, looked at dance, ballet and all that sort of stuff, and how much time they put into what they were doing, and thought, well, if I wanted to get really good, even better at what, I need to put more time in and just lift the hours up in the areas which really need improvement. I worked out, did cross-training. I started doing aerobic exercise classes. Before, I'd actually done weight training and strength training after having a knee operation when I was 20 years of age. And the weight training that I did, that stiffened me up. It actually made me, slower on the wave. So what we started to do was, I need to get quicker. I need to, move more, be more agile on the wave, as per Tom Carroll, and also Marco Calupo was coming on, Martin Potter and people like that were real agile and fast, and so I needed to get more agile and fast. So I started stretching, started lengthening. I started doing these crazy aerobic exercise classes, so I had a lot of fitness level. Back then, they were really dangerous to do. You just don't do these kind of classes now, super ballistic kind of movements, a lot of dance heavy movements, and I do sometimes 2 classes in a row, that would be 2 hours of intense workout, and usually with a crazed female, who's like a jazz dancer, but is hell bent on just kicking your ass. And I remember doing it. It was one of those. I remember doing it and getting into it and going, okay, I'm going to kick your ass too. So I kind of. But we did a lot of. I got a lot of benefit out of got my fitness levels up. Yeah. Doing that, and also got lighter on my feet. There's a lot of running, sprinting, a lot of intense, full range movement sort of exercise, a lot of stomach workout, some stomach workouts that go for, they probably take up almost half the class, some stomach workouts. So we were doing, really intense work. And then, so we're doing one of those, say, 5 days a week, and then alongside doing sometimes 6 hours of surfing a day. So we're lifting all that right up and just gaining a lot of stamina through doing that, and fitness levels, went through the roof. I had and actually my small wave surfing improved out of sight from that, and not over just like a month, but over, say, doing that whenever you can do, put that sort of time in and focus on improving over 2 to 3 months, and you start getting real results. And that's what I really got out of that I could actually, stick to something and then get the results. And that was really cool. That actually showed me I could lift my game, and that actually improved my big wave surfing. Or my approach in bigger waves and power actually improved a lot. Just my approach to the wave improved.
Those old school aerobics classes were very high impact and lots of agility, wasn't it?
Yeah, like jumping around, like almost plyometric-y kind of work, and dancing the same, and then running, and then doing this, and then sprinting back the other way, and doing that, and real like burning kind of squats, and you just completely burnt. And this girl, I remember this girl, she was an amazing dancer. There was a couple of girls up there, Chatswood Chase Fitness Centre it was. That's where I used to go up there and do them and then come back. And there was another place in town in Castle Ray Street. We used to go there and surf Bondi because at that time we were surfing waves that I didn't particularly want to surf. Really. I was going to places where I didn't really want to surf because I knew that I had to challenge myself in that area, because quite often you'd be presented the day and the event would come up and you had to surf, and it was just not where the time you want to surf. You know, you had to actually practice surfing waves you didn't want to surf. So that was really important in a mental exercise, you know. But coming back to, the aerobics, it's back then it was very dangerous. They wouldn't do it today. Yeah. And the kind of, like holding, do like plyometrics one set, next one would be like holding, like static holds, and till you just couldn't hold, and she'd be just looking at you going, come on, you can do better than that, I remember it just plainly just going through the burn and the pain of it. But I got to a point where I kind of, my body lifted to it, and it liked it, and I got through some pretty intense stuff.
So I guess the modern day version of that, you could do some like SAQ, some speed, agility, and quickness training. I saw a recent video actually. Julian Wilson was doing some of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, that sort of stuff would be awesome. Anything where you got to use your whole body, and you got to balance through the whole range, and and you got to think on your feet when you're moving. Just like anything that's surfing. I mean, surfing, you got to really kind of can't think. You can almost got to feel it as you move and twist and move. But practicing and training the body, getting it strong in the full range of movement, like that Julian Wilson stuff was good.
For folks listening, it's just a video of Julian doing some sprint training and some agility work through some cones and an agility ladder. And to do that sort of stuff, you need to be very fast and almost kind of light on your feet in a way. Your foot has to spend less time on the ground but still produce maximum power. So when you went through that few months of really surfing small waves for 6 hours a day and training, did you come out of that then kind of enjoying surfing small waves more because you were better at it?
Absolutely. The payoff was awesome. Like I was actually seeing more in a wave. I literally started to observe more in just small surf and saw it for what it was and saw of work it offered me, because also the results came which were really affirming. So and also I was much more tuned into my small wave equipment and understood what board was going to work well in. I got right off on like a little 5.6 I had. I'll never forget a really nice 5.9. Those two boards, we were riding longer boards back in those days, and to have like a 5.6 in your quiver, I was a little guy, but 5.6 was really small. It was a small board back then, and everyone's riding like 6.2s and 6.3s, and 5.11 was small, 5.10 was so small. But I loved that little 5.6. It was an awesome little board, and they had belly channels, and the first thrusters came in, and they were the part of those first thrusters I rode, and I just loved them. They finally gave me kind of hold and speed, and it was a really nice time to be surfing.
Yeah. So when you say you saw small waves for what they were, you mean you start to see the finer details on the wave, where to get speed from? Absolutely,
yeah. You're finding sections that you never saw before, and you're jumping onto bumps and little bits and pieces. I mean, I remember going to surf an event in Florida. So I went over to surf this Florida event, and Florida was really too small to surf that year. Everyone got a boat to drive along and try to make a wake one day, and I was sort of standing around, and I met Kelly Slater there. Like, he was just his little kid with his brother and his dad, this little kid with these piercing eyes. I go, oh, how's his kid's eyes? It's really cool. Such a grom, it's a total grommet, and went up to surf. They ended up finding a little beach where there was actually possibly a wave, and that's when I witnessed the Florida guys doing what they call the gator crawl, right? These guys knew where the power source in the wave was. They understood, like, they could suck, the blood out of a stone, those guys. Like, literally, the wave, there was no wave. I was going, how come they're surfing, It was amazing. They did this thing called the gator crawl. And what they do was they get down, just to get one last maneuver on the wave, they get down, on a shallow part of the sandbar, they'd be coming along the whitewater, somehow turning into the whitewater, and then they get the foot down on the sandbar, scoot along, like it was a skateboard, get back up on their board and do one more move. So, and that's what they call the gator crawl, because, the alligator, gator, Florida. So that was pretty outrageous, watching that, and noticing how these guys could do what they were doing on nothing. Basically, that's where Kelly comes from. He comes from that East Coast thing where he could see more in a wave and got taught more about a wave because there was less.
So what advice would you give to someone who really wanted to up their small wave game? We've already mentioned agility training, making sure you're on the right board. Maybe just expand on what you say when the wave looks different. What are you looking for?
Okay, well, I just noticed, when I'm trying to make my own speed with my body, technique is a really big thing in small surf. Being agile, you can be agile, but if your technique's not there, it's all about basically getting down low and actually expanding and compressing in and out of turns in a really subtle way, using the center of the body to actually generate power through your body. So that can, when you're looking at a wave and you're paddling for a wave and there's nothing much there, observing where you can actually jump to your feet and then basically make that first turn and hit a section straight away. You can't just stand up and just stand there on a small wave. You really got to get up and make your own momentum. So getting up and then pushing against the fin and the bottom of the board, the fins and the bottom of the board, just to sort of generate that first bit of displacement out of the hull of the board, and then pushing against that. And then you'll find yourself getting to where you'll find that one little bit of wall, face, whatever you've observed as you're paddling for the wave. Because that first turn counts for just a lot where you're going to go. And on any wave, but I'm particularly on little waves that have got no power, and we're looking for opportunity. So just to get that momentum going, that will carry you into the next turn. So with a finer view for that and a finer eye for that, we get to sort of understand water movement. That's that much better, because a lot of surfing is all about understanding water movement and making it second nature.
Yeah. So you're almost looking for the smaller waves and ripples on the small wave.
Well, you're feeling the power source again. It's like that momentum of a swell that sort of we all kind of suss out. As people who understand waves, we're kind of looking for water movement to catch. We're looking for that sort of change in light on the water, the way the light's bouncing off the water, and then you get that moving lump. It can mean a bump coming the other way from a wind chop, or something doubling over itself, sort of doubling up on itself. And it takes so much practice to really understand what a small wave is going to do. It's and that's what happened for me. I got to understand what water was doing better from that time spent, that kind of intimate moments, those intimate moments where I thought time was going backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that combination of frustration and determination.
Yeah. Yeah, combination of those two.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm sure the clock said that, but it's saying this. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned technique in small waves and how important that is. Did you have help from anyone from a technique perspective during that time?
No, I guess I didn't. But I did have someone who had kind of an idea of what was needed. I had a manager at the time. His name is Peter Manstead. He was a bit of a personal intrusion in my life in many ways, but he was actually quite good at seeing what was needed for you to succeed. So he kind of guided me into that discipline in a way, in a sense. He had his own interests in there, but he really believed in the situation and where we could go and what we could do. I wasn't necessarily this crazed competitor, to be honest. I know it sounds very strange with all the the results sort of facing me, and I wasn't necessarily. I'm not 24/7 competitive like I know a lot of great sports people are, but more so, I was into the technique of things or the feeling of the board in particular, and what I really liked about certain specific surfing. I had a particular idea about that, and I liked the way surfing felt as I got better at it, and I could feel that improvement coming. I did get good feedback from certain people, and I latched on to certain ideas around surfing, around what was good surfing. At first, it probably wasn't that good. There was some times when it wasn't that advantageous. So back in the single fin days, we used to ride off the twin fin guys, because they just weren't real surfers, And I think that was more like a movement we were involved with as young males. You get into a pack and you point the finger at the other group, But until you start riding twin fins, right? But it's like, but I didn't really get any technical help. I remember asking a couple of the judges along the way because I struggled watching some surfers do really well and wondering why and so on. So I needed to ask the judges certain specific things and get feedback from them. I don't know whether that's too appropriate today, but I used to go up to judges and go, "What do you need? What is this? What do I need to do with my own surfing?" So I did ask for guidance with the judges from time to time, which was very helpful for me. I tried my hardest not to point any blame at the judges along the way, and tried my hardest to focus in on what I could do to improve my surfing and work towards that rather than what seemed to be a horrible hole to fall in, and that was like point the finger at the judges and call them, like all kinds of names to get super angry at them. I just didn't see any point in that, so that was particularly tricky for us in a subjective sport.
Okay, so we've mentioned more time surfing small waves, improving your agility and your quickness.
Yeah.
Learning and practicing to see the small wave different, to look for the parts of the wave where you can get speed from.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned the feeling as well. You mentioned feeling a bit. Do you find you mentioned feeling the power of the wave. Did you become more aware of sort of what you were sensing through your feet and through your spatial awareness?
Absolutely. It's like, I used to love that feeling. And that's what I was really addicted to, I think, in surfing, is that feeling of, feeling the bottom of the board and feeling, the potential of the surfboard, feeling the potential of myself and the wave together as a little source of energy, I guess. And, I can articulate it better now than what I could back then. But I was just sort of basically walking around searching for that good feeling of moving around the wave fast in full kind of unity with the energy of the wave and momentum that I could create, and then particular sort of using my body in certain ways that can get down low and really I wouldn't say dominate sections, but like feel like I wanted to really push hard and get the push back from the wave, and especially as the waves got bigger, get that real strong push back. And it's also lovely watching some young guys now, watching what they do with the air and the technique and see how they use specific parts of the wave to get launched on or do really big turns. It's like they've got such a great sense and feel for what the wave's about to do. It's not necessarily what it's doing right now, it's actually what it's about to do.
Yeah.
So, because it's all happening very quick. So if we get a sense for that movement and predetermine, just to get a little hunch on what's about to happen.
Predicting the future.
Yeah, predicting the future. And then we're always predicting the future on the wave. Yeah, we're always going, okay, well, and the more we do it, the more we sense it. And so we're kind of little time machines running around. But on a wave in particular, because it's always moving, is you can't stop it and go, say snowboarding, you can stop on the hill and go, okay, well, we can stop here and then we can make a jump here and then we can always go back to that same jump, even though everything changes, but basically it's fairly static, and you can come back and make adjustments to this and that. Whereas on a wave, it's just a miracle where we're at with surfing, because it's such a changing environment. But just noticing specific parts of the wave, getting yourself really familiar with changing conditions, and just getting out there, no matter what, and putting yourself in positions that are, that are kind of adverse. They're not always pretty. In actual fact, some of the funnest surfs are when it's not that pretty.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah.
So I guess even small waves, you can find that power. You get a feeling for power and speed in any size wave.
Yeah.
It just takes a bit of practice and.
Yeah, and can actually once you get your technique going, you can jump onto a longer board and actually surf a longer board in smaller waves. Yeah. Once we start to get to that point, then we start to understand the turn better and actually the design of the board better in relation to your own power source, which is pretty much the core of your body and your technique combination of. So if you get a really nice technique, your strength in your core is really good, and you got some agility around it, you can take a longer board out and actually ride a smaller wave on it. And it's against everything, but what you'll do is you'll actually improve your technique as long as it's full and round, and each movement is full and round, and the full rail movement is full cut back, a full bottom turn, a full off the top, full rotation through the turn on a bigger board, and then jump back on your little board and see what happens. It's pretty cool what you get out of that. And even if you jump on a smaller board and a bigger wave and feel it, the other way around.
So mixing up your equipment keeps it fresh and helps as well?
Yeah. Keep it fresh and gives you another understanding. I wouldn't have too many choices like I have. Like I got way too much choice. I wouldn't wish that on too many people. I know that it's best just to really stick to maybe 2 boards, maybe, in our Sydney area, maybe 2 boards if you can focus on just enjoying 2 boards, generally, and not too many more. You'll have your own frustrations with the surfboard or whatever, but you'll edge towards that, improving your technique and understanding.
Yeah. You also mentioned learning to surf smaller waves helped your surfing in other waves and big waves as well. How does that work?
Well, because we're always looking for power, and all of a sudden there's just ample power. You're actually noticing more, so your concentration's better. You can see more of the power source, understand the power source better. I think there's just increased awareness around the power source. It's just more time spent with water in the way and observing its finer parts. As long as it's concentrated effort in the little waves and it's not sort of dull effort, you will improve your big wave surfing by surfing small surf.
Okay, let's summarise. So to improve one's surfing in small waves, it can improve our fitness and agility. We can start looking at the wave differently and in more detail, really looking to see where the power is, the smaller waves, the changes of light, as well as trying to feel the source of power in that wave as well, through our body and the way we move, as well as getting some feedback you mentioned as well. So back in your day, surf coaching and videos and weren't as common as nowadays, but nowadays we're so lucky we can go down the road and get a surf coach to film us and get feedback straight away. So that's obviously going to help as well.
Really helps, that stuff.
Yeah.
And you get the reality of your own surfing.
Yeah.
It really helps.
Yeah. Nowadays, and you're in your 50s, you're still surfing small waves just as well. Now that fascinates me.
Yeah.
Because technically speaking, most people have sort of that perspective as, when we get older, we lose our agility and our quickness. But I've seen you surfing small, horrible waves with more power and vigor than people half your age. And so tell us about surf longevity and what can you attribute that to?
Good question. I think because I've done so much of it, I kind of demand a certain thing out of my body and how I'm feeling in the water. There is definitely a certain level that I aspire to and within myself that needs to be kind of, I guess the desire needs to be fulfilled.
So you have high expectations.
Got high expectations, but not necessarily, because I can actually go out surfing and have a real easy run and not be too bent out of shape around it, or not even get bent out of shape. Whereas back in the day, I would be down on myself if I didn't get to a certain level on the wave, what I expect. Now it's not quite like that at all. It's a different story. I really go out there to enjoy the ride. I really go out to enjoy myself in the water. And I've been doing that for a while now. A real focus on enjoying the wave, enjoying my equipment, still a focus on equipment, still a focus on just enjoying surfing for surfing's sake, and just taking a wave, not placing a huge priority on, what kind of surf it has to be, just paddling out and enjoying it. And I think that's, and with still, like I said, with a focus on equipment and enjoying my equipment and having all that, no rules on what to ride, So, I've got to ride this or I've got to ride that. I've got to be this kind of person. It's been ruled out of my life in many ways. That where back in the 80s, you were a shortboard rider. That guy's a longboard rider. He's a bodyboarder, and it was really closed-minded way back in the day. But for me today, I've got a lot of options. So. As far as like the stand-up paddle, surf, and longboard, or surf with my daughter, surf with my girl, and not take it too seriously, just go out and enjoy it. Some fun little boards to play with, and just mixing it up like that. I think also staying light, with my attitude, staying light with my physical body, my body, staying light. I think that's key, because surfing really demands kind of agility and being able to get to your feet swiftly and get around the lineup quickly. Sort of hunt down waves which you kind of look good to me still. Like, I want to get that wave. I'm going to jump on it. So, still love riding a good wave. Still love it. So. I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
Do you think it's your lightness of attitude and your enjoyment that's progressing in surfing rather than your performance?
What's progressing for me is, I think, my aim is healthy kind of aging, and my aim is to be able to surf for as long as I can. That in itself, I think, is a progression. Aim at that sort of progress. Yeah, and to see a way through that. If I was to carry a heavy attitude into the water about something, whether it be to do on land, which I can do, I know some things might go on land and I might carry it in the water. I'm not saying I'm perfect at sort of keeping it all on land, but I try to keep it light. And I think that keeping that attitude light and keeping it open, not paddling out and expecting to get all the waves, not paddling out to expect to be in the perfect position all the time, but just observing myself and being in the lineup, talking to people, connecting with people in the lineup, and enjoying that too, that part of it, surfing, which is pretty nice. There's a lot of good people around who enjoy surfing, and I love seeing other people join their face, seeing them enjoy a wave, even when I'm on the wave too. Like, I like being on the wave with people. People don't like that sometimes, but I think that's fun. It's one of the cool things about surfing, when someone accepts you on the wave and you're riding together and everyone's stoked. It's one of the great feelings in surfing, to share a wave. It's got to be safe, but I think that's one thing that I liked about what I like to bring in my surfing, is something that's not too attached to, ownership, of something that nature's producing. It's an energy, it's coming and going. Why get so hard up about it? So try to keep it light and enjoyable.
So you don't mind if I drop in?
Mike, you're welcome on wave any day. Yeah. It's always funny, actually. When I actually say someone here can drop in on me any day, people will just go, "Whoa." Some people just go, "Oh, I'll never do that. I'll never do that." It's really funny. Yeah.
So you mentioned lightness. Obviously, agility kind of feels light. But what about your physical body? Are you the same weight as you were 10 years ago?
Yeah, so when I was competing, I was about 65 kilogram. So today I'm 68 kilogram. I don't do half as much surfing as what I used to do, as far as like the amount of energy output that I put out. So I'm probably putting a little bit of weight.
That's not much though.
No, 3 kilos, and that can disappear in a couple of days if I did a whole load of stuff. But I think keeping in the action, going surfing, try to keep it daily. That sort of stuff's really important, to keep it light. Doing some other kind of form of training the body, which has that getting up off the ground, like working off the ground, lying down, getting up, kind of like burpee stuff, things like that, yoga, burpees, things that where we're kind of mimicking that getting up off the ground from a lying position is really good for surfing, I think. What I heard, actually, I only heard it, I think it must have been about 5 years ago, the American Insurance Association had to get a real gauge on how to measure someone's lifespan from this point now. So how do we test that? And they came up with this, which made a lot of sense to me. And when I heard about it, I went, ooh, because they said now we've got a very close. We can get a really close idea of how long a person's going to live by how quick they get up off the ground from a lying down position to a standing position. Surfing's a good one because if we say surfing, that's prone to stand-up surfing, not just stand-up paddle surfing, or it all sort of fell into place because I've been doing my school reunion classes for years, and every time we go to these school reunions, all the guys that I went to school with, I still surf with, they're all quite together, physically, and we go to these school reunions and we see some people and we go, what the hell has happened to you? Oh, you've been in front of a computer? Non-surfers who haven't had to get up from a prone position to a stand-up position. And if you do it regularly as a surfer, we're in good stead, because how much you've got to use of your body when you stand up on a wave quick. It's like we work the core straight away. It's all timing, and so if we can work on that sort of stuff.
So simple, just keep surfing.
So simple, keep surfing, paddle out, catch a wave, paddle back out, catch a wave. So it's and maybe mix it in with some other exercise that it sort of complements it, like swimming is a real good one. Cardio fitness work going, and then a bit of agility work. And if you want to see some big waves, you can just throw around a few weights and some body weight workout and work on the core. And
what about nutrition? Is that something you've looked into much?
Yeah, well, okay, so back in the 80s, it was a training partner and a guy that I used to surf the tour with, Mike Nealing. I never forget this moment. It was in Hawaii in 1985 and 1984, 85 winter. We're staying in this house in Hawaii at log cabins, and he pulls out this book, New Dimensions in Health, and I'll never forget it because I've still got it, and it was about nutrition. He goes, I've just got this book on nutrition. I'm going, what? What do you mean? He goes, yeah, look, it makes so much sense. We've got to work on our nutrition. It's what we put in, I've gone, yeah, you're on the money. That's fantastic. I really liked it, the whole idea. And I'm going, wow, that's a great idea. It makes so much sense. I know that what I'm putting in myself. I never liked drinking Coca-Cola. And I was a bit of a, sugar freak. I'd probably eat a little bit too much sugar. But certain things I couldn't put in my stomach and then go surfing. And I didn't feel good. And when I was training, I liked eating certain foods. I noticed myself gravitating towards good protein sources and stuff. Anyway, but I didn't know that then. I just didn't know. I was just this kid, really, sort of blundering around, just eating whatever I could. But my brother actually initially sort of started, he taught me how to cook a bit. But then on that trip to Hawaii, Mike started looking at nutrition and what it meant for us as athletes and what we could do to actually improve ourselves and so on. And the fact that he had this thick book about it was like, wow, here we got this book, and let's have a look at it. What are they saying? And we started eating things like buckwheat and, like steaming vegetables and just eating simply using miso. And I used to get this black ginseng paste, Korean red ginseng, and I used to have loads of that, because I heard about its properties, its ability to sort of help the body oxygenate and the blood oxygenate, and so I was into that. We used to get brewer's yeast, like put that and mix it in with water before competitions. So we started to look at doing also fasting, juice fasting, 3-day juice fasts, vegetable juice fasts only, searching out organic sources of food, and that was back in 86, 87. Cooking food along the tour, not going out too much at all, and then just sourcing food off the markets, local markets. Some places was really hard, places were hard. That's what we were looking for. So in training times, I would really focus on it. So when I'm back here in Australia and I'd have a couple of months of training on the off season, we'd focus on diet. And I'd cut out sugar. I'd do all sorts of things, which was really hard. I remember that being really challenging. And I felt good. I felt light, especially after doing juice fasting. And I also did grape fasting, using grapes. 3 days was my max. I wouldn't go out further than 3 days. But some people would push it out of a week, I think Mike did a week grape fast. Mike always was trying to sort of strip his fat off. I didn't need to lose any weight. I was naturally sort of had a fast metabolism. But I did notice the clarity after doing, and my body just soaking up the nutrition after a juice fast.
Is nutrition something you're still learning about?
Recently, in the last couple of years, started working with a nutritional cleanse program with my partner Mary. She and I have found this amazing system of nutritional cleansing, which is really, we've been able to start to coach people through this program and have had some of the most amazing results. Seeing people have had nothing to do with their diet. I didn't have any awareness of what they were putting into their mouth and the effects of the kind of food that they were putting into their mouth. And where they were emotionally around that too. When we started to work with people and work with the system and getting the results myself and then sharing it, it's been really amazing watching people's lives turn around as a result of using this system. And it's just guides guides us towards just making better choices, and in our diet. Basically, go for a kind of. I was talking to Kelly Slater a few years back. We were sharing some stuff around nutrition, and at the time, and I'll never forget him saying that he'd just been reading up, and what he found was that there was an equation, which I'll never forget when he said it because it really penny dropped a bit for me. Was if you put 75% high-end nutrition into your body, good whole food diet with really, really nutrient rich, there'd be 25% left. If that remaining 25% were not so high in nutrition food, and some maybe even very like nil food with no nutrition, the very little bits of nutrition left in that food, the body would recognise it as good nutrition and it'd take it up and discard the rest. Whereas if you flip that equation around, which is quite common today, that 75% of the diet, what we put in our mouth, is very low nutrition food and dead food, or nil food, and we try to make up for the remaining 25% of putting really good high-end nutrition by saying, we better put this good stuff in there. The body's struggling so much with that, putting that 75% bad stuff in, that 25% goes unrecognised.
Yeah, doesn't know what to do with
Doesn't know what to do with it. So I really like that. I'm going, wow, that made a lot of sense to me. And it kind of relaxed the whole idea around, like, do I have to be 100%? I'd have to go all the way. I turn into a psychopath, which I never liked the idea of. But I did like the idea of looking at nutrition, and I knew that my body enjoyed good food, and I got the results. And it bears out in my surfing. It bears out in the water, and my ability to recover from, good surfs.
And your longevity as well.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So there's that 80-20 rule. Comes into play again. We hear it a lot. In nutrition, it's really important.
Ah, yeah.
So 75, 25, 80-20.
80-20 is good.
Really similar, yeah. So you don't have to be strict with your diet all the time, because then, Saturday night, you're like, oh, no, you can't go out with your friends then. Mm-hmm. But if you can be really good, then you assimilate a lot more. So tell us more about, you're working one-on-one with people with nutrition. So excellent. And people that are interested in working with yourself and learning more about it, how can they get hold of you?
Well, what they can do is they can email myself at info at Tom Carroll Paddle Surf. That's TOM. Carroll is CARROLL. Paddle Surf. There's Tom Carroll Paddle Surf.com. And so you can contact me through that, and you can learn more about this nutritional cleanse. It's we're looking at nutritionally supporting a cleansing of the system through a 30-day process, and it's pretty cool watching people. They're like, come on, yeah. Your
nutrition has a huge effect on your health and your performance and every part of your life.
Especially if you're carrying extra weight. I mean, there's nothing worse than not being able to move swiftly on the wave, and not being able to take full advantage of conditions when they're good.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much either. Only 5 kilos of body fat is slowing you down a lot.
I was up to 75 kilogram for a bit. I didn't really sort of take notice of it. I remember weighing myself and going, whoa, 75 kilogram. That's the heaviest I've ever been. And that was probably about 6 years ago. And at that time I wasn't moving as well on the wave. I wasn't moving around the lineup as well. I was a bit more tired.
Okay, so I'll put a link to that email address on the show notes as well. So people that are listening in can just jump back on their computer and go back to the show notes and find that. And we're running out of time, but before we go, I want to ask you a quick 4 questions. Mm-hmm. Your favourite 4. What's your favourite board?
At this moment, wow, gosh, I got so many surfboards. And so many different types of conditions. What I'm really enjoying at the moment, I've got a board from Max Stewart, does isometry surfboards. It's a little Cali quad. He calls them a Cali quad. It's a little quad. It's only 5'5", a little swallowtail quad. For these little conditions we have at the moment, the board's really fun to surf.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, the isometry Cali quad. Favorite all-time surf movie?
Favourite all-time surf movie? Good question. I haven't watched one for a while.
Did one stand out? Did you used to watch any particular surfer or surf movie back when you were...
When I was a kid, we didn't get to watch movies over and over because they were just movies. There was no such thing as videos and stuff. But I remember we're going to watch Free Ride, the movie Free Ride at the Sydney Opera House, and just like coming back to tell my dad how much he had to go and see it, just to see what we loved, And Free Ride had a huge impression on me. Mark Richards in a barrel with Sean Thompson at the back door, and just Hawaii. Sean Thompson getting really deep barrels and sort of redefining barrel tube riding. And that whole time, that's what they call it, the busting down the door on the North Shore. And that next winter I went to my first winter on the North Shore in 1978. So 77 it was filmed. I was 16. I absorbed that movie really, really right into my DNA. Watching those guys, Sean Thompson surf backside pipeline, and Sean Thompson was a real star in that movie, and it he really affected me from that point.
Favorite surfer?
Oh, my favourite surfer, yeah. Gosh, it's tricky, I think. I've always loved watching Kelly surf. He's been a fantastic surfer to watch evolve, and as a surfer, just his routine on the wave and the way he kind of views the wave, and I love watching that. I really love watching that. It's been really inspirational for me. That said, I'm really impressed by a lot of surfers, and yeah.
Who's your favourite goofy footer?
Favourite goofy? Wow. I love the way the Hobgoods surf, like CJ and Damien. I love watching those guys surf. I love watching Luke Egan surf, He's incredible.
Favorite pre-surf song or album?
Wow. Can't say I've got a favourite. I listen to all kinds of different music, from classical music to kind of old music, some of the I've been listening to Chopin and Leonard Cohen and Nick Cave and all this kind of mixture of music. Just recently, my daughter Grace has been turning me on to what's Interstellar, the soundtrack to Interstellar, which has got some real heavy thickness to it, emotional kind of power. That sort of stuff really kind of gets me moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a band called the Mammals, the Australian band. I've been listening to them a little bit, and they're kind of got a really nice sort of fluid sound. That sort of stuff can get me in the zone.
You see a lot of surfers nowadays with the headphones on just before a heat. Always wonder what they listen to.
Yeah. Very personal.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's a very personal thing.
Yeah.
The music. But definitely there's something about the rhythm of the wave, the rhythm of the wind, the conditions, the Mother Nature and sound. So there's some sort of, vibration that needs to be tapped into there.
Yeah.
So if we're out of whack of that vibration, we're kind of going to blow every wave, or we get pinned on the sandbar, or can't figure out why we're not kind of making the waves, or, get out of whack with everything.
Yeah. I use music all the time. Sometimes, if I'm too excited,
pull it
I haven't
back down.
surfed. I'm frothing. I'll put something really calming, like some new age music to help me like calm down. Because I think sometimes when you're too frothing,
Oh yeah,
you're too
yeah.
energetic, you make
Yeah.
mistakes as well.
For sure. Absolutely.
And then when I'm feeling a bit low, I'm like, oh, it's only 2 foot slop, I'll put something high energy on to kind of
Get you moving.
get my nervous system ramped up.
Yeah.
Yeah, music is awesome. Okay, Tom, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for the interview.
Pleasure,
Maybe we
mate.
could even do a big wave interview maybe, heading into winter later
We
on
can do that.
next year.
Sure.
We talked about small waves because it's summer here in Australia.
Mm.
We could talk about big waves
Yeah,
later
we
on.
can.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's
Thank
do that.
you. Thanks for tuning in to the Surf Mastery podcast. Again, I'm your host, Michael Frampton. Make sure you subscribe so you can keep up to date with the latest interviews. Please share with your friends. Check us out on Facebook at Surf Mastery Surf. And if you're on iTunes, please go and give us a little rating. That'd be awesome. Until next time, keep surfing.